It's Friday, the 4th of April, 2025.
This is the Pod News Weekly Review, live at Podcast Movement
Evolutions.
with James Cridland and Sam Sethi.
I'm James Cridland, the editor of Pod News.
And I'm Sam Sethi, the CEO of TrueFan, suffering massive FOMO at the moment, but we'll find out why later.
In the chapters today, the Pod News report card by Pod News, the state of video podcasting by Amplify Media and Coleman Insights. What is a podcast from Oxford Road and Edison Research, and even Patreon, Substack and Netflix are leaning into podcasting, and Spotify announcing more proprietary ad tech as well. This podcast is sponsored by Buzzsprout with the tools, support and community to ensure you keep podcasting. Start podcasting, keep podcasting with Buzzsprout.com.
From your daily newsletter, the Pod News Weekly Review.
Right, James, let's kick it off. So last week we had the Infinite Dial 2025, and this week we have three more esteemed, noteworthy reports. The first one was just done at Evolutions. It was from Amplify Media and Coleman Insights. What was the report, James?
Well, the report was really good. Both Jay and Steve have just been on stage, and they talked very much about audio being healthy and thriving, but video still more important than ever. It was research from Amplify Media and Coleman Insights. Stephen Goldstein and Jay Nacklis revealing that 77% of podcast consumers are consuming both audio and video. They just joined me here, Steve, which is nice. Jay, greetings. Good morning.
James, great to see you as always.
You've just been on stage. What's it like on that great big stage in there with your numbers and everything?
It's a rush, right? I mean, putting these studies together is an experience in itself. I think we're a bit like kids in a candy store when you extract the data, and anytime you find a finding and you say, "Oh, that's something we need to share. That's something we need to share," and then then you feel like you're in this waiting game of you've done the analysis, you've put everything together, and you just can't wait to share the data and see people's reactions.
Stephen Goldstein welcomed us with an excellent joke saying, welcome to day 10 of Podcast Movement, because it certainly feels like it. What were the headlines, Steve?
So the headlines are that if we thought that Gen Z was leading the way and they were the ones primarily using YouTube, this dispels that. Most people, just about everybody, is some combination of audio and video, regardless of age. So only 10% of Gen Z are pure audio. Only 16% of the whole sample, 15 to 64, was only audio. And on the other side of the spectrum, meaning only video, only 7% of either of those age groups. So everybody's in the middle. However, before we get to the point of anybody listening to this with video despair, if you take the 10% of Gen Z that's audio only, and then the 30% of Gen Z that's primarily audio, you're at 40%. So I say audio is alive and well, and people are just using their options of wherever they are, making choice.
Jay, you showed an awful lot of video as well in this presentation about video, but it was video from creators talking about how people discover shows, how people are promoting shows. What were the takeaways from that?
Well, vertical video or clips has become really very important. And when it comes to social media, I mean, the big headline was you've seen research projects. We've done many of these. And when you talk about podcast discovery, friends and family is always number one. And for the first time, we see that social media took over friends and family for number one. And that, of course, can be attributed to the fact that YouTube has become a powerhouse in this space. And the ascent of short form platforms have become really, really important in the discovery play. So Shorts is bigger than ever. I think sometimes there's people that sleep on Shorts a little bit. They shouldn't. And the other thing is that TikTok is important, but don't sleep on Reels. That is number 3 behind YouTube and Shorts. So I think that's another important takeaway.
Yeah, that was really interesting seeing that Reels does so well, and that TikTok is actually below that. So I thought that was fascinating. Steve, there is a webinar coming up, I think, where we can see the whole data and find out more.
You'll be able to see us in the upper right-hand corner, but you'll see the data on the large part of the screen, and we will present this entire thing in a webinar on April 17th at 2 p.m., and you can go to either Coleman Insights website or the Amplify Media website to register. And there is one other thing I think worth discussing, and that is Spotify. So here's Spotify having made the big video move at the end of 2024, compensating artists and so forth. But we are not seeing the full change to video consumption. Spotify remains a primary audio medium today.
Well, fascinating stuff. Steve, Jay, thank you so much for that. Amplify Media, Amplify spelled AMPLIFI, or Coleman Insights for information about that webinar. Thank you both so much. Sam, also there was the Pod News report card, of course, which was fun because I ended up being on that very same stage. So that was entertaining.
Yes, I've got a picture of you on it. It's very nice. Now, this is the third year of the report card, I'm correct in saying. And what was your key finding then, James? Come on, reveal all.
Well, YouTube scored really highly. All of the scores for all of the apps, YouTube ended up scoring significantly higher numbers than last year. So they are clearly winning creators round, which is an interesting thing to end up seeing. Apple continued to be the creators' favorite platform, though in the apps category, the independent podcast app Pocket Casts was number 2. Ellie is here, and I have not yet managed to bump into her to tell her that. But yes, really good news from all of that. But, fascinating data. It's really interesting to end up seeing. And what's nice from my point of view is that all of the big platforms are now asking to learn more about what those numbers are.
And again, given that Apple was number 1, but you had some more data on there as well about, let's say data that people weren't happy with. I was reading some of the things like, I don't care about RSS. I don't care about this.
Yes.
So not everyone was a happy Larry in your report.
No, and I think that's the nice thing about it is that it is both positive and negative. You get the gripes from the keyboard warriors as well as the positive things. And actually, quite a lot of the time, if you go and have a nice sit-down meeting with Apple, you want to be nice to them. You don't necessarily want to be rude to them, at least if you're not me. So that's always fun. But from that point of view, it's nice to actually see the unvarnished truth, in terms of that. So, so that was quite fun to do.
I think the other thing I would like to highlight from your report is that our friends at the Podcast Index came out as the number 1 directory. I love that one.
Yeah, and always coming out with that number 1 directory as well. Matt Maher is here. Matt Maher is the MC of Podcast Movement. You've been doing this for years and years, haven't you?
Yeah, a decade.
A decade. Wow.
Can you believe that?
And so you are there with your sparkly trousers as of yesterday and your sparkly top as of today, exciting us. What's been your takeaway from Evolutions?
We were just discussing it. Video. I think and I think some people think, oh, well, I have an older demographic to my podcast. They don't really do video. And what I'm learning is that the data is no. Everyone is searching and yearning for video. And when you think about it, I think it's just another way to connect with your listeners and for them to feel closer to you and build that community that we do so well as podcasters.
You do a podcast yourself. What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Reality Gaze.
And in terms of that podcast, how much video are you doing on there?
Well, for us, we have our video. It's behind our paywall of our premium, of our Patreon and Apple subscription. So what we're realizing now is that's actually the thing we need to probably lead with the video for discoverability.
Matt, thank you so much. And thank you for your excellent work for the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to say it if you won't. God, do we have to have the title "Video Kill the Podcast Star"? Because it bloody well feels like it at the moment.
I do hope not. That would be a dreadful thing.
Hang on a minute. You know, we talked to Megan at the Infinite Dial. It's all video, lean back TV. We talked to Amplify Steve, and we talked to Jay at Coleman. It's all video. And now you've just had somebody come on and say it's all video. I mean, seriously?
There is an awful lot of video talk. It's a bit like, if you remember a couple of years ago, everybody was talking about AI. This time everybody is talking about video. So, yeah, that was definitely one of the standout things there.
Now, I mean, we're going to talk about this next bit in a minute when we talk about Oxford Road. But in your report card, there was also nobody measures the same. And I think that's worth highlighting. What did they say about that?
Yeah, exactly right. So a lot of people saying, you know what, Spotify doesn't measure the same thing as Apple. Apple doesn't measure the same thing as, YouTube and so on. Actually, what was interesting is the IAB came up to me after that and said, we would love to learn more about all of this. And so that is a very welcome. That's a very welcome move. So yeah, I think there's real understanding now that yes, there's an awful lot of detail and data from all of these platforms, but it is very difficult to merge them together. And that's certainly what the folks at Bumper have been saying as well. In terms of that.
So, if I wanted to read the full report card, James, where would I go?
You would go to the Pod News website. We covered some of the PodTrack data that we covered earlier on in the week, and as well as the report card. Just have a look at the stuff at the bottom, or indeed just search for the word report card, and you should hopefully find it.
Now, there's a couple other people talking. Tom Webster was talking, and he kicked off the keynote. What did Tom have to say?
It was an interesting start in that, Tom was basically talking about podcasting is growing, but it's not growing quite as fast as maybe we would like podcasting to be growing. He was talking very much around the need to convert occasional listeners to more frequent consumers. So from that point of view, it was a good conversation. He was very much saying we've got to focus on still growing our medium, and that was quite a nice thing.
I think podcasting, when it becomes habitual, is very, very interesting, and we all know that it's on your train, car, or dog walk where most people consume it.
No, it absolutely is. And you may have heard the music has gone up a little bit. That's because I'm now inside one of the big expo halls. And I thought it was only fair to have a very quick chat with the man of the moment from our sponsor, Buzzsprout. Here's Alban Brooke. Alban, greetings.
Thank you, James. It's nice to be on the podcast. We're recording Pod News Weekly.
Yes, the Pod News Weekly Review. You're live on the Pod News Weekly Review. Please do not swear. So this is no sugar added, Alban Brooke. What's your thoughts been on the show?
Well, we're getting to meet lots of people. We had a nice Buzzsprout meetup last night. It's good just to see everybody and check in. A lot of walking. The hotel is a little bit separated from the conference area, so I know we've all stayed in shape and gotten our steps.
Yeah, isn't it just? What's the big sort of takeaway that you have felt? It's been quite positive, quite a positive feeling conference. Although quite a lot of people do like talking about the word video, don't they?
I've heard way too much about video. I think that I've hit my breaking point weeks ago. And hearing more about video convinces me, yes, video is going to be a platform, but do we want podcasting to become a subset of video? TV shows will always remain, movies will always remain, but do we want podcasting, the same thing that happened to Instagram where it became a video app, not a photo app? Do we want Twitter, which became a video app, not a text app? Do we want that to happen to podcasting? And I think the answer is no. We have a unique medium around audio storytelling, and I don't think we should just give that up to become a subset of video.
I think here. So, Alban, thank you so much for your time. I will let you get back on.
Before he goes,
go on.
Could you ask Alban, I'm thinking of doing an RV trip across America. Is there a company he would recommend?
I would not recommend any in particular. I would strongly recommend against indie campers. Anybody who wants to know my full review can go read any number of angry reviews that I've left over the last few weeks.
Yes, and the Buzzcast show is very much worth a listen because, blimey, yeah, that was not a good company.
Well, I'm on a spite mission, as Larry David would put it. So I'm sure there'll be more posted.
Alban, thank you so much, and thank you for your support as well. I appreciate it. Cheers.
So, James, one of the other reports that came out at Evolutions was from Oxford Road and Edison. Dan Granger spoke. What did he say? I thought you'd answered this question, James. What is a podcast? Why is everyone still asking it?
Yeah, exactly. So Dan did talk about what is a podcast, and actually he has done an awful lot of hard work in terms of working out what a podcast is, talking to a lot of different people about what a podcast is, and so he's got a full, complicated definition, which is in a white paper because that's the way that Dan Granger rocks, and you can find that on the website. So that's all good, and also he's put something. He's put a really nice documentary into the Media Roundtable, and the Media Roundtable is a great show with a 3-part documentary about the history of podcasting and what a podcast actually is. And it was kind of a rallying cry, really, in terms of where podcasting is actually going.
Well, I read the whole report, and I do recommend that people do read it as well. You can get a link from Pod News Daily. But the questions he was asking, what is a podcast? I don't really think that was the thing. I mean, he said it's audio on demand or it's video on demand. It doesn't really matter. The thing that people were saying was that it was hard to share podcasting between apps. But the fundamental bottom line of what he was asking in that report is, what is the metric? We're talking about first-party data, closed walls, YouTube and Spotify. And he's saying that if podcasting and advertising is to grow beyond the alleged 2 billion mark, then we need a better way of reporting and measuring. And now we've talked about this before. John Spurlock, friend of the show, yourself, me, and a few other people are talking about a way of doing that. We'll put my cards out. I mean, Dan Granger's called it an open measurement protocol for podcasting. There is a way of doing it, and I'm currently with you and others working on it, which is using something called activity streams. Yeah. That's a first-party structured piece of data. And when people say, oh, well, no, you can't use that, it's a bit like saying RSS, don't use structured data, it's XML. Why would you use that? Well, it's the converse side of it. It's what apps will put as structured data. It's a W3C standard, and it's shareable. And I think that's the way forward. And when we use that mechanism for sharing first-party data between apps and hosts, I think we do have an industry-capable standard then. Yeah,
I think certainly John Spurlock is also working. He was here as well earlier on in the week, and I know that he's also working on something in terms of that as well. But lots of different technical solutions. But making sure that people are measuring the same thing is obviously a really important thing from that point of view.
Yeah. Moving on then, James, back to the good old UK for a while. You reported a couple of weeks ago about the BBC turning its back on adding advertising into its podcasts after a lot of criticism from the UK podcast industry.
Indeed.
But what is outcome? What's the outcome, James, now?
Well, so the BBC was going to be taking advertising in the UK for some of its podcasts if you didn't listen in the BBC Sounds app. So that was one of the things that the BBC was going to end up doing. An awful lot of hue and cry from the rest of the UK podcast industry, because when the BBC, one of the biggest publishers, jumps in, that's the last thing really that anybody else wants, to lose an awful lot of advertising revenue. So from that point of view, it's very good to hear that the BBC has basically said, no, we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be stuffing our podcasts full of ads in the UK. And it would have set quite a precedent, I think, in terms of the BBC's output in the UK. So good news all round, I think.
Yeah, Audio UK, we had Chloe Straw on, the CEO, last week. She came out and said, basically from them, we remain strong supporters of the BBC and its vital role within the UK's podcast and audio industry. The BBC plays an important part in the industry and we continue to support its funding through the licence fee. But she went on to add, we remain concerned about the BBC's entry into the UK podcast advertising market through content produced by BBC Studios. So I think fundamentally everyone's relieved that they haven't gone down this road. Do you think it's the right way? Do you think that's the right decision eventually?
Yeah, I mean, so I was on a podcast from Roger Bolton. Now, Roger Bolton used to present feedback on BBC Radio 4. He now presents his own podcast called Beeb Watch, where he can dive in a little bit more deeply into some of these things. And and we were talking about what the BBC's future is outside the UK and inside the UK. And I think very clearly the BBC inside the UK is funded by the licence fee, which is an anachronistic thing, but it works, and that's fine. Outside of the UK, funded by advertising, and that's a good thing too, in terms of earning more cash. Also, by the way, outside of the UK, it is earned, if you want to, by paying for the Apple Podcasts premium subscriptions of the BBC's content, and a lot of people are doing that too. So all of that, I think, is good, but I think when the BBC starts to compete in terms of revenue inside the UK, then I think commercial organisations should cry foul, because the BBC has £3.6 billion coming in from the licence fee. That's pretty well guaranteed. And one thing that you can certainly say about commercial media is that revenue is not guaranteed, in terms of that.
Again, one of the things I think we had Chloe on last week. If you want to hear more of what she thinks the Audio UK role is in guiding the industry here in the UK, then I highly recommend listening to her interview on last week's show.
Indeed, and you'll also find that interview in full in this feed as well, weekly.podnews.net.
Now, James, let's move on. Patreon seems to be gaining a little bit more momentum. It feels like that to me anyway. They have said that the highest earning category on Patreon now, with 6.7 million membership, is podcasting, and they've launched a new program with Sony and Wondery. What are they up to? Yeah,
they appear to be diving into podcasting a bit. Sony Music and Wondery, you'll be able to buy podcasts on the Patreon platform, listen to those podcasts in your favourite podcast app, and all of that. So essentially, Patreon turning into supporting cast a bit. So interesting to see that. That's the typical mechanism of supporting cast. I believe that Substack does much the same sort of thing. There's Supercast, of course. There's a bunch of other tools which allow you to end up doing that. So, Patreon jumping in, and with some really high numbers. 6.7 million memberships, and I think Ashley Carman managed to get a total value out of them as well in the Soundbite newsletter. So, doing very well in terms of that.
Yeah, I've for 2025, I think my three words are content, commerce, and community. And I think we are seeing Patreon, Substack, and others really going down this road. We are also seeing, I think, with Substack, I've been watching, one of my favorite networks is Zeteo, and they are using, and quite a few others like the Midas Touch, they're using Substack for live broadcasting through YouTube. So they're using YouTube Live, and then they're also writing their blogs.
Well, that's interesting. That makes a ton of sense.
And we're seeing Patreon are also trying to go down the live road as well. So I think you're beginning to see what I call multi-function community platforms, right? So they're going to do blogging, podcasting, video, live, merch, which is what those two platforms offer as well. And I fundamentally think any single function app now is probably on the road to ruin.
Well, there you go. That's a bold a bold decision.
It's not my prediction yet. That's later in the year.
No, very good. Very good.
We're sorry, but now it's time for more news about Spotify on the Pod News Weekly Review. Oh, good.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, it's time for more news about Spotify. And this time it's time for news about Spotify in terms of their monetization model. They've got a bunch of new tools and things which I don't fully understand in terms of that. But they've also expanded the Spotify Partner Program to a further 9 new countries, 8 of those in Europe as well. So that weirdly means that even Americans will earn more money from the Spotify Partner Program for reasons that I'm not fully understanding. But yes, definitely still continuing to grow.
Now, one of the other things you reported on this week was about a company called Linus Media Group. And they shared how the content company makes money. What I was interested in from that was the revenue from YouTube is just 11%. But
yes, very small.
Yeah, but 37% from a revenue share with YouTube Premium. So if we go back over what we've just talked about, we were talking about Patreon with 6.7 million members. We're talking about Substack. We're now talking about YouTube Premium. We're talking about Apple channels earlier with the BBC trying to monetize. My question to you, James, because I always say that podcasting is this second-class digital citizen, you know. People expect to pay for music, films and audio books, but they don't expect to pay for podcasting. Are we jumping now to a point? Are we reaching that tipping point where people are saying, actually, for quality content, yes, I understand I need to pay for it?
Yeah, I think we are more and more, and I think Apple is certainly helpful, you know, in terms of that. Apple has very much driven people's understanding of a premium podcast subscription. You know, it's a paid-for thing, which people understand. And of course, you've got Patreon, and you've got those sorts of services in there as well. So I think that people are beginning to understand that yes, you know, there is advertising, and of course there's advertising, and that's definitely one thing. But I think also it's you know, other ways of earning money, other ways of giving money to the creators that you really enjoy. And if, you know, as we see from Christian, you know, broadcasting, you know, that survives essentially on people just giving them money. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think it's relatively unhealthy if all of media out there is just paid for by advertising.
Moving on, James, let's whiz around the world. Over to you in the US. Hubbard Radio have announced the launch of a Gamut podcast network. What's this one?
Yes, so this is so Hubbard Radio is 102 years old. It's one of the oldest media broadcasters in America, which is still going. It's family owned. Ginny Hubbard is the CEO, and she's very nice, and I've met her a couple of times. And so they have launched their own podcast podcast network, which is called the Gamut Podcast Network. And Ginny Hubbard, I mean, not, you know, basically saying, look, the launch of Gamut is more than a rebrand. It's a pivotal evolution for our company. That's a company which, of course, is mostly AM, FM radio stations. So interesting to see that. That's run by John Wardock, who is here. He's been around over the last couple of days. And, yeah, so it's going to be interesting how that pans out. But that's exactly, I think, where broadcast radio stations should be going.
I think one of the things that I was looking at, because I went to the Gamut Podcast Network and it's got a whole bunch of podcasts. I went to Megyn Kelly's network. I went to a few other networks that have launched. One of the things I'm frustrated about is nobody seems to be explaining what publisher feeds are or pod roles. And again, this whole thing seems to be missing.
Yes, well,
I don't know how we get people to understand these things.
Yeah, well, that's one of the issues with that. Is it's an issue with you know, marketing those particular features, of course, and you know, and that's going to be, you know, one of the issues there.
Now, Triton Digital is to expand its US podcast ranker. What's it doing?
Well, yes, Triton has, Sam, come out with an expansion of the US podcast ranker, and it's now including all publishers. I've literally walked outside to Triton's stand, and I'm wondering if I ask Daryl very, very nicely, he might actually explain what's going on with the new expanded Triton podcast ranker. Daryl, who are you at Triton, first of all?
Hi, James. I lead measurement analytics at Triton.
And so you made an announcement about the Triton podcast ranker. It's now going to measure everybody every quarter, as I understand it.
We do. We have a part of it that will measure everyone based on surveyed listeners, representative of the U.S. population. Specifically, we're talking about the U.S. podcast ranker. We will keep the download ranker, which requires publishers to have their logs measured. And then we've added from our Demos Plus solution a list of podcasts that reach efficiently or over-index for different audience segments, different demographics, income, shopping behaviors or purchase intents, lifestyle data, which is a resource for advertisers to help understand what podcasts should they be considering for their buys.
Yeah, so you'll be able to look at podcasts, I'm guessing, for people who are in the market for buying a new car, for example. Which podcasts are they listening to there? Or podcasts, for expectant mothers, that sort of thing. Have I got that right?
You got the in the market to buy a car. We have moms in there. I don't think we have expecting mothers. Sometimes they want to keep that private in the survey. But the general idea of it, you've got right.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And so when's the first all-encompassing ranker coming out? Are you calling it a ranker or are you calling it something else?
We're still calling it the U.S. podcast ranker, even though the component about the audience profiles isn't exactly a ranking. It's not really about who's number one versus number two. It's really more about a list for that piece. Still a ranker coming out later this year. We haven't reported an exact month yet. Not the end of the year. It's not that far off, but later this year.
Well, it's super exciting. Daryl, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll let you get back to your email now.
Good
So
timing, James. Well
I know. It's almost as if I can read ahead in the show notes and work out what you want to talk about next.
Well, let's talk about something else next. We've been reporting over the last few weeks about people who are not declaring that they are charging guests to be on their show. You had a report about the US advertising self-regulator saying something. What was that, James?
Yes, it was about social media influencers who were basically they've been caught out doing posts on X and on TikTok and stuff, and not being obvious as to where their data, as to where their relationship is with that particular company, and I just felt that it was interesting in that there is clearly more and more eyes on that side of things. And so something that we just need to be a little bit careful of in terms of podcasting as well.
How would you enforce it? I mean, this is the problem with all these things, right? You can say it, but how do you enforce it?
Well, I mean, it is the law. And so the Federal Trade Commission, assuming that somebody still works there at the moment, it is the law. So there are fines that you can actually pull. But the typical way that this works is that, shows will be reported to the FTC, and the FTC will take a look and make a decision on that.
Moving on then, James, something about Podbean running deceptive Google ads. That doesn't sound good.
Yes. Now, Podbean are here, but I'm absolutely not going to go up to them and ask them about
Go on.
No, I'm not doing that.
I'll hold your coat while you start the fight.
But so, occasionally you have to call out people doing unethical things. And what Podbean has decided that it's going to do is, again, because it was doing this a couple of years ago, again, it's going to advertise on Google, but advertise by pretending that they are the company that you have searched for. So if you type in transistor, for example, then there will be a top search result that says Transistor in the title, but you click on it and it goes to Podbean. Which is, I mean, it's against Google ad policy. It may be against US law. It's just bad. But what's been interesting is since I published that on Monday, everybody has been coming up to me going, "Oh, Podbean, eh?" And they are a supporter of Pod News. So, there is always that. But as ever, they haven't actually got back to me. And explained themselves, which usually means that they can't explain themselves.
I have no issue with guerrilla marketing where you're being quite aggressive, but I think if you're being deceptive, I think that's a crossing the line.
Yeah, no, indeed. No, I think it is crossing the line a little bit, and I wish that people would, do the job properly, I guess.
Whizzing over to Spain then, the 100th edition of the AudioGen 3x3 newsletter has been published, and you're in it, James. Why?
I am in it. It's talking about the audio industry, the global spoken audio industry. That's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? Yes, I'm one of 3 people who've been interviewed for that. You asked the question why. It's because I'm brilliant, Sam. That's
okay,
why.
Sorry.
Obviously.
Obviously. So who are the other 2 people then?
The other 2 people, the co-founder of Radio Ambulante, Daniel Alarcon, which I've probably pronounced incorrectly, and Lucas Friedman, who is from Olga in Argentina. And it's, talking about radio as well as podcasting, and all of that stuff. So, so it's an interesting read if you speak Spanish. And if you don't speak Spanish, translation services are available, which is always a good thing.
And I didn't even know you could speak Spanish, but there's a new skill.
Yes. Well, yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm back to where you are in your homeland. A new audio creative agency has been born in Australia. What are they?
Yes, it's a new company called Original Audio. I believe that one of the co-founders comes from somewhere else, somewhere big in podcasting. I'm desperately trying to remember where it is, but I can't remember. Anyway, they're calling themselves Australia's AI-driven audio creative agency. They're using AI to do some of their audio stuff. They've already done some deals with some technology providers. But an AI-driven audio creative agency is, I think, quite interesting. Now, I've wandered over to the Podpage stand. Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting and from Podpage is here. Greetings, Dave.
Greetings, James.
I thought I would come over because I know that you've been quite lonely over here.
Thank you very much.
So I thought I'd come over and give you company. How's it been for you here?
It's been lonely, but here's the thing you don't realize. I talked to a handful of people yesterday, and one of them is a web developer, and he was like, "Man, I really love your stuff." And he goes, "I was telling all my friends last night, if you have podcasters, you got to check this thing out." So it's one of those where you kind of like, man, I only talked to, a few people yesterday, but if you talk to the right people, it's a trickle effect. So, but it's been a fun show, and lots of networking and lots of things that make me scratch my head. So that's
oh yes, lots of things that make you scratch your head. Go on then.
My favorite one was, hey, if we get rid of the word podcast for people on YouTube, then we'll have to call them YouTubers. And I just wanted to scream out, and what's wrong with that? But I did not. I kept myself in check.
There are quite a lot of things going. Why? What are you doing that for? It's been an interesting time. How many steps have you managed to get in?
Literally 12 to 15,000 a day, and that is not the norm for me. So it's been fun. I played ping pong, and I was very happy. Just the fact that I'm still able to play ping pong. I used to do that quite a bit when I was young, and I was like, am I going to blow out my knee as I try to, return this volley? But I stayed intact and did not lose. So, that was another fun thing. I still got it, apparently.
Most impressive. Dave, thank you.
Tell him, hurry up and get another edition of The Future of Podcasting. It's been about 9 million weeks since he did one.
It has, and it turns out because Daniel J. Lewis is a nice guy, because he's usually the guy's like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And he didn't prod me because I had lost a friend of mine, Neil Galarte, and he's like, I wasn't sure if you were ready to get back on the mic. And I'm like, well, I'm back on the mic on all my other shows. I think I'm okay. So yes, we were, I've hung out with him a lot. So yes, there'll be a new one very, very soon.
Excellent. Good news, Sam, I think there.
Exactly, yes. My queue is feeling empty, as they say.
Your queue is empty, is it? Oh, well, there we are. Well, your queue will be fuller. Dave, thank you so much. And thank you for your support with the School of Podcasting as well. Much appreciated.
Yes, always. Keep up the great work, guys.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to people in jobs, James, your friend of mine, Rob Walsh, has got an anniversary to celebrate. What is it?
Yes, he did a talk yesterday, very good talk, all about podcast statistics and things like that. And yes, he is celebrating 20 years as of this week in podcasting, doing podcasting for a job. So yeah, which is
congratulations,
which is quite a thing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, indeed.
Who else, James, is moving and grooving in the industry?
Well, I will tell you once I've scrolled down. David Prever has been made head of podcasts at Sassy Plus. Now, David Prever used to be on a ton of radio stations in the UK, so he is clearly an audio veteran. It'd be interesting to see what Sassy Plus is. I don't know much about it, but apparently they will be at the podcast show in London. Also, what else have we got here? Leah Reese-Dennis has been promoted to head of podcasts at Odyssey. Odyssey making a couple of announcements this week, including a free podcast host, because we all want one of those, but also taking their Podcorn product and making that scalable as well. That's all about selling host-read ads and that sort of thing. So that's all good. And David Allen Moss, who used to work at Evergreen Podcasts, he is now an advisor to the Mercury Podcast Network, which is an independent podcast network, I think based in the UK, actually.
It is Liam. Yeah,
so,
Liam.
Yeah, so that's all good news from that point of view.
Moving on to the awards and events, James, you were probably there at the AMBIES, the American Podcast Awards. What happened?
Yeah, the AMBIES were super exciting. They were on Monday, and as I stand in front of the Podcast Academy stand here, I can actually see somebody deflating the AMBIES statue, which has been up here for the last 3 days. There is somebody sitting on top of the AMBIES statue and doing that. But no, a super good event on Monday night. It feels so long ago. Tig Notaro hosting that. Hysterical winning podcast of the year. Ira Glass was here, honoured with the Governor's Award, and Sam Sanders receiving the Impact Award as well. There's a link to all of the winners and an OPML feed, Sam, because I know that you like OPML feeds.
I imported it and it worked.
Links from the Pod News newsletter as well. So yeah, and I know that you have been disparaging them and calling them the American Podcast Awards, but there was at least one UK winner this year, I noticed.
Oh, okay. Who was that?
Yes. I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that question because I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's about as far as we go.
That's it. And the other one was there was 9 newly elected people to the Podcast Academy, right? And I was going, really? Because all the names that are on that list look like names that have been there before, but
they are re-elected. I think most of them are re-elected. You serve 2 years on the.
Unlike the US president now. Yeah, okay.
You serve 2 years and then you can stand for re-election. And essentially half of them run out 1 year and half of them run out the next year, if you see what I mean.
Gotcha.
Which, keeps things going from that point of view.
Other awards, James. The Webbies, the nominees for the 29th Annual Webby Awards were announced. And the event is going to be on Monday, May the 12th in New York. So you've got a Webby, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, you say a Webby, I think you'll find I've got two. But yes.
Same joke every year, but we have to do it.
I know. Same joke every year, exactly. There have been lots of people on stage here at this event, and there were 2 lawyers on stage.
That's never good.
I know, which I know. I don't know what the collective. Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. What is the collective of lawyers?
The collective of lawyers? Well, there's a handful of us that do this stuff in this space, and frankly, that's more than enough. So.
It's a handful of lawyers. And how have you felt this event?
This event has been overall good. The vibe has been a little slow, I guess I would say. But I've met some great people and really enjoyed myself.
And so you were on stage with Lindsay Bowen. What was the big takeaway from that particular thing?
Well, our talk is about a particular kind of contract deal, shopping agreements, where a producer, in air quotes, will take your podcast and try to get it developed into a film or television project or something like that. And the title of the presentation was "Do Shopping Agreements Suck?" And we could have answered it in one word. So the answer was yes, they suck.
Sam has a question. Let me just wait.
What do you call 100 lawyers at the bottom of the sea?
Oh, Sam, I'm not repeating that to him. What do you call 100 lawyers at the bottom of the sea?
A good start.
A good start.
Gordon, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You made me repeat that to him.
Exactly. Now, I like Gordon very much, so he can be one of the exceptions to the rule.
The tech stuff on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Ah, yes. Yes, it's the stuff you'll find every Monday in the Pod News newsletter, and here's where Sam talks technology. What's going on? Pocket Casts running out smart folders next week, which is quite neat. Do you know anything more about that?
No, they've got folders already, so I don't know what adding the word smart in front of the word folders will do to them. But it automatically groups them together by shows. So maybe they've just gone and enabled the categorization to allow you to have news automatically in one folder and comedy in another. Sounds like that. It's very clever. And obviously, as you showed from the podcast report card, that, it's a very popular app as well. So well done.
So you can play around with that now if you're on the beta, and if you're not on the beta, it's coming any minute now. Also, Apple released a new version of iOS 18.4, now available as an update for iPhone and iPad. For podcast fans, 2 new home screen widgets. So if you're a big fan of a particular show, maybe you're a big fan of this show, you can put this show as a widget onto your home screen, so you've always got access to the latest episode. I'm not quite sure whether or not that's an amazing thing for this, but nevertheless, it's certainly worthwhile checking out. It's the widgets once you've upgraded.
Oh, I'm very glad there one developer has done something, so it's good. Now,
no, he's been here. He's been here, and apparently, I should tell you, Sam. Apparently, he's quite. We kind of get the understanding that Apple would like to point out that they don't just have one developer.
I hope they don't. I hope they have a lot more. But I mean, let me put it. The productivity of the UK is exceptionally low. Apple is below it. I mean, what are they doing?
Yes, no, it's been it's certainly been entertaining, but still there we are. Hey, let's go on to our favourite time of the week.
Boostergram, super comments, zaps, fan mail, super chats, and email. Our favorite time of the week, it's the Pod News Weekly Review inbox.
Yes, so many different ways to get in touch with us. Fan mail by using the link in our show notes, super comments, true fans, boosts everywhere as well. We share any money that we make too. We've got some boosts, which is always nice.
Yes, we've got one from BR, 1,000 sats from Podverse. Pod News Weekly Review, Podcasting 3.0, exclamation mark, question, and the Infinite Dial. Yes, we did have the Infinite Dial, and it looks like I've been approved to talk at the London Podcast Show on Podcasting 3.0, Agentic AI, and the future of advertising.
Yes, well, that was 1,000 sats from Ben Richardson, of all people. So that was nice. Now we know exactly who he is. A row of ducks from Silas on Linux, 2,222 sats, talking about his political positioning, which is everything is stupid. I think we were making a joke about what his political positioning was. I always try to listen what someone has to say and then decide on that individual thing. Do I agree or not? Correct. I don't like the reductive left versus right thing. Correct. And he also is talking about Napster and the name and the history of the Napster brand, which of course I think was part of Real Networks. At some point. So, yes, very good to hear from Silas. Now, you were mentioning a little while ago, we've just told off Dave Jackson for not publishing The Future of Podcasting. Here's a man who has a mouthful of sweets. So I'm currently a mouthful of candy, just to translate. And so I'm just talking until he finishes that mouthful of sweets. It's the one and only Daniel J. Lewis. How are you, Daniel?
I am wonderful. It's great to see you in person. Great to be around so many other podcasters. Great to be on Pod News Weekly Review.
Yes, well guessed. So we were just curious, when's The Future of Podcasting, your podcast with Dave Jackson, coming back?
We're going to have a future episode about, or follow-up episode about podcast movement, because there's certainly a lot to talk about from here, the video stuff, some of the new things developing in AI, so within the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. And what else is new with Podgagement and everything else that you're doing?
Well, the 6 years of charts and ranking history that I've been tracking was stored in the wrong format. So it has been taking months for it to reconvert, re-import, do all of this stuff, re-index, all this geeky, nerdy database stuff in the background. That is finally coming to a close within the next few days. So I'm excited to have that so people can see the ranking history for 6 years and then the SEO tracking feature.
Very good, very good. Oh, I'm more SEO tracking. There's a thing. I'm looking forward to that. Daniel, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Keep podcasting.
Thank you. Right, let's move on. Seth, 1,000 sats from 1,192 sats from him. That's a slightly bizarre number, isn't it?
Well, it's because he would have paid in a fiat currency, because he can do that on.
There's a dice, isn't there? There's a dice image there.
No,
that probably does mean something.
Well, I'm not sure what that means, but the odd sats number will be because he would have paid in fiat, and we would have translated that into sats for us.
Well, none of it makes any sense to me. Anyway, he says,
Humbug,
he says, isn't it? So this is following the news that Spotify, lots of people have been uploading porn to Spotify. He says, isn't that when you know you've made it as a service, when porn has infiltrated your platform, which I think he's absolutely...
Sure. I'm sure that's the word we're looking for, but anyway.
Absolutely correct. Bruce, the ugly quacking duck, a row of ducks, 2222 sats from him. I enjoy episodes, he says, that contain part of all remote recording. It shows the host went, part or all remote recording. It shows the host went above and beyond, not just in the comfortable studio. Thanks for both of what you do. And then he signs it off by 73, which 73 being some amateur radio thing that I don't fully understand. But here's a man who does. I'm at the Blueberry stand, which has some very nice pens. Thank you, Todd, for spending all that money on those pens. Here's Mike Dell. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
What does 73 mean?
It is a radiogram and it means best regards.
Best regards. Do you hear that, Sam?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. So how's the show been for you, Mike?
Pretty good. I had some good meetings, good conversations. Booth traffic is not so great, but otherwise awesome.
Yeah. No, it's been good. It's been a bit weird because you are in a part of the hall here that is basically turned off in the morning while the keynotes are on. So I hope you appreciated that my keynote was only 15 minutes long.
Yeah, it was great. A little dark over here, though.
Yeah, it does. It gets a little bit dark over here, but no, it's been good. Excellent to see you. Of course, Todd is in warmer climes, isn't he? But I have a feeling that we will see Todd at the big podcast movement in Dallas.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure he'll be there.
In London, he's coming to London. He's confirmed.
Oh yeah, Todd's going to London. Also with Dave. I don't know if you've met him, but he's one of my support guys.
Oh, who's Dave? One of your support guys? Wow, okay. Excellent. Why does Dave have to go to London then?
I'm allergic to long plane flights.
And Todd needs someone to carry the bags.
And with your background, Mike, I'm surprised that you are allergic to long plane flights. Really good to see you. Good to see you, Mackenzie, as well. So everybody's still here on the final day. Sam, it's all quite fun.
Back to the Boostergrams then. Neil Velio, friend of the show, sent 304 sats from True Fans saying, "Thank you so much for the get well message. I love you guys." Yes, get well soon, Neil. See you in London for the London Podcast Show.
Yes, indeed. And thank you as well to our power supporters, talking about, all of the new news from Patreon this week. Of course, you can support this show by going to weekly.podnews.net armed with your credit card. We take all major credit cards, probably. Yes, we've now got 18 excellent supporters. Oh, there's a round of applause going on. That's exciting, isn't it?
Perfectly timed, really.
Yes, perfectly timed for our 18 power supporters. Star Tempest, who is the latest one of those, got in touch, and she said, "I'm not anyone special, just someone who's had you as part of my weekly routine for years. Thought it was time to give something back. Thank you very much." 35 years old. She says, "Most of my time spent between the Midlands, East Anglia and County Durham, and I'm a PHP developer. I must have been a bad person in a previous life." I'm a PHP developer. How dare you? How dare you? She goes on to say, "I think the modern Silicon Valley-led tech landscape is a load of something bad, and so open source, open RSS and privacy are some passions of mine, along with podcasts, of course." Well, thank you so much, Star, if that is your real name, for being the 18th weekly supporters. Our other weekly supporters are Cameron Moll, Marshall Brown, Matt Medeiros, Mike Hamilton, Dave Jackson, who we spoke to earlier, Rachel Corbett, Cy Jobling, David Marsell, Jim James, Rocky Thomas, who's been here as well, Neil Velio, Ms. Eileen Smith, Claire Waite-Brown, John McDermott, James Burt, and David John Clark, as well as Brian Ensminger. John McDermott from Calaroga Shark Media here earlier on in the week. We shared an almost satisfactory American beer together, so that was definitely a good thing.
Nice.
So Sam, what have you been doing all week while I've been gallivanting around the world? Pining
is one thing I've been doing. Wishing I was there with you. But the other things I've been doing, we improved our offline support for True Fans this week. So now we can actually track your activity. So your listening activity, any micro payments you pay while you're offline, we store that locally and sync it when you go back online, which I thought was quite a nice thing to do. And the other thing I'm very interested in is I'm reading a lot more about something that's come across my table called LLHLS. Not that we need another acronym in the industry.
Oh, great.
Yes, low latency HLS. And it's really quite clever in that it does per second streaming as opposed to every 6 or 10 second chunks, which is what HLS does. And I think what it gives you is immediacy of audio or video because it's already stored and ready to go and it's constantly doing it. But it also gives you all the capabilities of rewind. And if you're going to do things like voice-related Alexa skills and stuff, you need this type of technology. So I'm reading up about it, and I find it really interesting. Yeah.
Well, you'll be surprised to know that there are actually quite a lot of technical conversations going on around HLS at this conference. So clearly HLS is a thing which people are thinking about, which is nice. So, more of that, the better, so far as I'm concerned, because it's particularly useful for video, of course.
And last thing, I'm up in Birmingham. So,
oh, yes.
I'm at the Unipod Podcast Festival. Let me try that again. So I'm up here with Nina Robinson and Megan Bradshaw's up here and Claire Waite-Brown and quite a few other people. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yes, very good. That should be fun.
What has happened for you, James, apart from drinking with Mr. McDermott, and rolling around the aisles and keynoting. What else have you been up to?
Yes. Well, and also enjoying a deep dish pizza because obviously I'm in Chicago, and so therefore a deep dish pizza is a thing. Wasn't that impressed? So that's been good. But yeah, no, it's just been good running around, meeting people, doing an awful lot of talking, as you can tell from the state of my voice at the moment. It's been all good fun. Looking forward to going home though tomorrow, because that'll be a very pleasant thing. And then I've got my 80-year-old parents in my house for the next 2 weeks. Coming all the way to Australia, so that's going to be fun.
Bless them. Now, one thing that I picked up through all the conversations you kindly brought onto this show is that there wasn't a lot of traffic in the booths.
Yeah, there are 1,600 people here, so it's still big. It's still a big event and all of that. Some of the booths are in slightly weird places, and so quite difficult to get to. And also it's very spread out. And so Pod News sponsored the industry track. The industry track is downstairs. I'm upstairs at the moment. I've been downstairs once. There are lounges and things around the place and everything else. And as you've heard a lot of people talking about walking, everything is very, very spread out here. And so I think what we've seen is, the effect that a very large venue has on 1,600 people. So I don't think things have been quite as busy as some people were expecting. But of the conversations that we've had, the conversations have still been absolutely gold, as Dave was saying earlier. So, so I think, it's a pretty good event. Interestingly, we don't yet have a date or a venue for Evolutions next year. So I don't know whether to read anything into that. But that's about as far as we know there. And in terms of in terms of course, the big one is podcast movement in Dallas, which is in August.
Next up, though, for you, James, is to come back to Blighty for the London Podcast Show at the end of May.
Indeed, which I'm very much looking forward to. And that's it for this week. All of our podcast stories were taken from the Pod News daily newsletter at podnews.net.
You can support this show by streaming sats. You can give us feedback by using Buzzsprout fan mail in our link in our show notes. You can send us a super comment or a boost, or become a power supporter like the excellent 18 that started at weekly.podnews.net.
Our music is from TM Studios. Our voiceover is Sheila D. Our audio is recorded using Clean Feed. We edit with Hindenburg, and we're hosted and sponsored by Buzzsprout. Start podcasting. Keep podcasting.
Get updated every day. Subscribe to our newsletter at podnews.net. Tell your friends and grow the show. And support us. The Pod News Weekly Review will return next week. Keep listening.